السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Inshallah, we're going to be starting tayammum. Our goal is going to be to finish Kitab al-Tahara today. If not, inshallah, we'll finish it next week, bismillah. With that being said, we are on page 6 at tayammum. Read for us, inshallah. Bismillah. التيمم وليس
التيمم فصل وشرائط التيمم 5 أشياء.
طيب التيمم لغة in the Arabic language it means to want something, right? It's like to desire. القصد, the poet, he says لما تممت الأرض أريد به خيرا, that when I desired a land I wanted خير. I did not know which one of it, أم الخير أو الشر الذي يلينني. I don't know which one of them, goodness or badness, is going to reach me. So it means tayammum, it means al-qasd. In the Sharia, if you keep the linguistic meaning, it means you are desiring a turab, right? And that's why tayammum bit turab, you are desiring a turab. And this is from the blessings of this ummah, and from one of the gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to the ummah, to where you actually see clearly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala making it easy for you to perform an act of worship. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that Allah does not desire fi dini min haraj, that there is no hardship in this religion. And from the ways that you see that, it is by at-tayammum. At-tayammum, it is an act of darura, an act of necessity when there is no water, and we'll get to what constitutes it later. But it is a replacement for wudu and al-ghusl. The only difference, the definition that the Shafi'i madhab gives to it, is when you make wudu, they say this is raf'ul hadath, that you have removed impurities from yourself. At-tayammum does not do that. What it does is istabahu salah, that it allows you to pray salah. So it allows you to perform acts of worship, but it does not remove hadath from you. Even in the state of ghusl, before you perform ghusl, you are in the state of janaba. So if you were to perform it, it allows you to go and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The conditions, he says, are 5 things. For you to perform tayammum, you need to have these 5 conditions. In reality, there's only one condition, and then there are 4 reasons. If you look through it, you'll see that there are more reasons than there are conditions, right? So the actual one condition will be like waqt salah that he says, but the others are just reasons why you do it. But what we'll do here, we'll just go as the author mentioned it, and then say these are the conditions that a person needs in order to perform ghusl. Shara'it is the jam' of shart, and the other jam' of it is shurut. And what is shart? What is a condition in Arabic? What does that mean? When I say condition, what does it mean? Yeah, Umar.
You say that the condition exists,
like we went to
take place before.
What did we say yesterday? Last night.
Yeah.
قواعد الفقهية class. الشرط is a شرط. It is ما يلزم عدمه العدم ولا يلزم وجوده الوجود. It is what makes, if it is there, if it is not there, then whatever you needed it to be there is not also there. So for example, a condition for salah is tahara. That is from the conditions. If that condition is not there, it means that salah is not there. It also means if it is there, it doesn't necessarily mean that the action it was done for is also there. Making wudu does not suffice for prayer. So that is what a condition is. What is, if it's required. So if these requirements are not there, you cannot perform tayammum. But just because all of these requirements are there doesn't also mean you could perform tayammum. All right? طيب. Read for us.
فصل وشرائط التيمم 5 أشياء. وجود العذر بسفر أو مرض، ودخول وقت الصلاة، وطلب الماء وتعذر استعماله، وإعوازه بعد الطلب، والتراب الطاهر الذي له غبار فإن خالطه جص أو رمل لم يجوز.
طيب. He says the five conditions, and the numberings again from the different scholars they refer. Shaykh al-Islam Zakaria al-Ansari rahimahullah, from the Imams of the Shafi'iyah, he counts it to all the way to 17. But in reality, they all go back to one of these five. So he says the first one, it is وجود العذر بالسفر أو مرض, that you have an excuse due to traveling, or you have an excuse due to the fact that you are sick. And the way, the proof for this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَإِن كُنتُم مَرْضَى أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فلم أو if you are sick or if you are traveling فلم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا صعيدا طيبا, that if you don't find water, then use sa'id to do tayammum. Now, just because you're traveling does not mean that I can do tayammum, I don't need to do wudu. What it means is it is more likely that a person does not have access to water when they are traveling than when they are at home. So in that case, if because of that travel you don't find water, you are able to make a tayammum. Or if you are sick, and sickness here, what it means is anything that you might have. It could be a wound on where you would make wudu, or it could be like in the example that you would find the man that had a head injury, and they told him to make ghusl, and then he ended up dying. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "May Allah kill them, for they killed him. If he just did tayammum for ghusl, it would have been enough for him." Right. So it could be that type of injury. It could be like any open wound on where you would make wudu, where you fear using this water is actually going to make it worse. That person can do tayammum. That person could do tayammum. The next one, he says, وَدُخُولُ الْوَقْتِ. Time has to come in. And the time that he is talking about here is salah. Because we have said this is an act of darura, this is an act of necessity, and it becomes a necessity when you have to pray. So before prayer, before like right now, dhuhr time is not here, it wouldn't make sense for us to go and make tayammum intending to pray dhuhr time. What if we find water before that time comes? So therefore, time actually has to enter in order for a person to go and make a tayammum. The next one, he says, وَطَلَبُ الْمَاءِ, it is the searching of water, going and looking for water. And where you get this is فَإِن لَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً, if you do not find water. So there has to be an act of actually going and looking for water. Now, how do you do that? There's really many levels to it, but in general, you make an effort, and this changes between the people and their customs. You make an effort to actually look for water. You'd go to the left, to the right, in front of you, behind you, or you'd go and look. Then you would say, you know what? I've attempted to find water, and it is a sincere attempt, and I have not been able to find it. Then now you could perform tayammum. So it just can't be like, for example, today we try to use the bathroom, and we open the sink to make wudu, and there's no water coming out. Okay, but khalas, now I have to do tayammum. We would actually have to go to our neighbors, go make some effort. And some of the scholars put the distance of how far, like if we're in the desert, let's say, the herders, the shepherds, and so on, what is the distance that they take their animals in search of water? For them to go and find a body of water and go drink it, however long that takes, if it doesn't go into the next salah, that is how long you're going to have to go and look for it. And then, like, khalas, I've done my due diligence, I cannot find water, now I have to make wudu. When it comes to like up to where should you be able to do it, they even say the best is it's better for you that, let's say dhuhr is 1:30 and asr is 5:30. It comes in at 5. If there's a small chance that you are going to find water all the way at 4:50, even though this is a disliked time to pray salah, it is better for you to wait until that time for the possibility of water and make wudu and then pray. But if you know, like, there's no water that you're going to find, it's better to do it as early as possible. But if there's even like, there's just maybe beyond this mountain, there's going to be water, you're told to strive to go and find this water, because wudu with water, it is from the perfection of salah. While here at tayammum, this is a rukhsa that you are being given. That this is a concession that is being handed to you. So there should be like, I want to do what's better, and that is to make it with water. Then the other one, he says, وَالتَّعَذُّرُ اسْتِعْمَالُهُ, it is that you fear using water. So here, three things really what we're looking at. One, if you have you have the water, but you don't have enough water. You have enough water to drink, but not enough water to make wudu. You're not going to use that water. Or you have water, but there's an animal with you. And it's either the animal drinks or you make wudu. The animal is going to drink. Right? Or you fear that using this water, even if you have enough to drink and you have enough to make wudu, but you fear that because of this travel that I am on, the next time it comes, I won't have water to drink, even though you have sufficient for this time for drinking and wudu. For that extension, you say no, I'm going to perform tayammum. So the fear of using water, um, and then the last one, it's if Alaikum salam katuh. The last one is if it's again causes some type of harm, the usage of water. If using water causes some type of harm to you, and again, it can be something that you just, oh, I don't like cold water, so now I'm going to make tayammum. It has to be like there's an actual fear of I'm going to be harmed by using this water, therefore I'm not going to use it. Any questions up to here? طيب. Now, the other one is he says وَعِوَازُهُ بَعْدَ الطَّلَبِ, like you really don't have it after you've searched and you found it. There's nothing else to be found. You've exhausted the what is expected of you, and you just didn't find the water. Then now you would be able to use it. The other condition, the fifth one, he says وَالتُّرَابُ الطَّاهِرُ, pure turab. What is turab? It's dirt,
Sand.
sand. Is that what we consider turab? Huh? Dust. What we want here is actually dust. Because he says له غبار, and it needs to have غبار, and غبار is like if you were to touch it, it sticks to your hands. So it will stick to your hand. And فإن خالطه جس, and this is in English, this is jimsi. It is like some minerals that you find in which you use like in cleaning products and stuff like that. And also in what they use when they make like drywall. Um, we won't say it's concrete, but it's like the stages before it, drywalls, paintings, things like that. Or a raml. And what is raml? Sand, right? Or sand. So if it's mixed with sand, it cannot be used. It has to be pure earth. And the reason they say that is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, فَتَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا. Sa'id is يعني كل ما فوق الأرض is what some of the scholars took it. Everything that is above the ground, right? صعد, like above. So anything that's above the ground and it is pure, you can use it for a tayammum. The scholars here, they differ. The Shafi'i madhab, it has to be pure dust. That when you touch it, some of it goes to your hand. You have some madahib that allow يعني, like grass or tree. Why? Because it is above ground, right? You have some that allow rocks. You go touch rocks, and there's some that'll stick to your hand. You can make a tayammum. From there, you would get to like natural bricks, right? Not the bricks of our time, but the bricks that they used to have before, where it would be made, and they'll still be like dust, and you'd be able to touch it, and it will get on your hand. It needs to be tahir. The other proof for it is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, "Ju'ilat liya al-ardu masjidan." Right? Allah has made this land, the earth, a masjid. Wa turabuha, and the land of it, tuhurun, has been made purified. Like the dust of it has been made pure. So from here, in this madhab, it needs to be one that is tahir, and it cannot be mixed with other things. And it has to have ghubar. You touch it, and it comes to your hand. Any questions? Yes. I'wazuhu, like we'll just take it to me like you finish it. You couldn't find it. Like you were done after you looked for it, you searched, and now there's no finding that water. Like, uh, uh,
Um, if some take stone to be okay, then how is sand not okay? Is it sand just
yes. So those that take stone also take sand.
okay?
So all the way to trees, right? But for us, the Shafi'i madhab, uh,
So what if you find yourself in like a forest where there's no sand?
this ground. So it's not. We're not looking for sand. We're looking for dirt, not dirt.
You said dust.
Dust.
What is dust?
So dust, like, uh, so let's say what gets on our car, like what gets on the couch inside of the house, it gets dusty.
But,
So
yeah, I mean that could be like follicles of the skin, just like dead skin.
so it can't be. It has to be natural dust. So the people that say you use trees, like there's some dust on it, so when you touch it, you're touching this, like this tree has um, some earthy thing to it, right? Like if when we go outside, we, alhamdulillah, they just pave these places. We can't make tayammum with that. You cannot make tayammum with that. But if they left it the way it was before, eventually it starts to collect dust, right? Because this is new, there's no dust on it. When there's dust, now we can go and touch it and start making tayammum.
Once we know we can take a step of sand, like
Yeah, we could check. Or like there's places where it's like where the tree grows, right? Like under where the tree grows, right? You have, it's not concrete. You have like a little bit of land. What do you, we'll say land, just earth. You have earth there. Like you could touch that place and start making a tayammum.
So that the dogs.
Allahu Akbar. They also let their dogs. So the way, yes,
But if it's dry,
there you go. So the way we operate with the world, because the hadith that we just quoted, Allah has made the masjid, the earth, a masjid. The the first position is everything, that every land is pure, unless we find something that tells us it's not pure. So if we see like a dog has been there and the droppings have been left, then we're like, okay, yeah, the land is pure, but now this has made it najis. So not the other way around. We don't look to find a pure place. We assume everything is pure from the land, except what we know to be not pure. Right? Any other questions? Now, let's go to the fara'id. At the end, I'll tell you guys how we perform التيمم. خلاص at the end of this. طيب فرائض التيمم اقرأ لنا بسم الله.
فرائض التيمم وفرائضه أربعة أشياء: النية ومسح الوجه واليدين مع المرفقين والترتيب.
طيب, he says the fara'id, and fara'id means what you have to do in order to say I've done tayammum, now I can go and do what salah, I can do other things. He says there's four things. You have to do four things. The first one, it is a niyyah. You have to make the intentions that you are making a tayammum. The time that you make the intentions for tayammum is when you are going to go strike the earth or strike the land, because that is what tayammum is. It is the wanting of using dust. You'd make your niyyah there. Then he says, وَمَسْحُ الْوَجْهِ, it is the wiping of the face. So you have to wipe your face. وَالْيَدَيْنِ مَعَ الْمِرْفَقَيْنِ, then you would have to wipe your hands up to elbows, up to elbows. Then he says, what tartibu? The other one, it is to do a tartib, to follow in this order we said. The face, the hand, tartib, niyyah first, the face, and then the hands مع المرفقين. طيب, here I think it's good to explain how a person does a tayammum. In the old school, in Imam Shafi'i's old school, you do one striking of the earth. So what you would do is you take your hands, you make your niyyah, you would hit the ground. You would pick up your hands, there'll be something on there. You would wipe your face. Then you would go like this. Wash the hands, and you're done. This is the old school. And the new school, where he adds now the mirfaqain, the way that you would do it is darbatan, two twice. So you make your niyyah, hit the land, pick up your wipe your face. Then hit it again, then you take your hand. Now, it can't be that of washing wudu, right? So this is what you would do. This hand, you have the dust. You would start from here, or you start from the tip here. You would go like this, and then bring it here. Go like this, and stop here. So you don't do the inside because the turab is already there. The dust is already on the inside. Then you take it and you do the same thing here. Stop, and then now you do the hand. That is the new school. Are we clear on tayammum?
So you go straight from the dirt to your face. You don't like hit it and then go like this and then
Straight from here to here. You know, ajib, huh?
and the second time you do twice or just once.
So you do once face and then once hands. Now, why does Imam Shafi'i have two things, right? The old school and the new school. There's a hadith in Sahih Bukhari where Amr ibn al-As radiyallahu anhu, he is in the state of janaba, and he's traveling, he's in the state of janaba, and he has to lead the companions. So he decides, I'm going to make ghusl. What he does is he goes outside. The water is too cold, and he fears that it is going to harm him. So he said, I started rolling on the ground, the dust, like the animals would roll on the dust. And I said, khalas, now I have I've made ghusl, I'm going to go pray. He leads them in salah, then he goes and tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he's telling him the story, he tells him, صليت بأصحابك وأنت جنبا. Did you lead the people in salah while you are in the state of janaba? He said, no, I performed ghusl this way. Prophet ﷺ laughs and he said, it would have been enough for you to just strike, wipe your face, and then wipe your hands. This would have been enough for you. For ghusl, this would have been enough. And this hadith is found in the Sahih Imam Bukhari and Sahih Imam Muslim. Then there's a hadith in the Mustadrak of Al-Hakim where the Prophet ﷺ, he says that for tayammum له ضربتان ضربة للوجه وضربة لليد أو لليدين. He says that there's two strikes when you perform tayammum, one for the face and one for the two hands. So you have one hadith that is in Sahih Imam Bukhari, Sahih Imam Muslim. You have one that is in Al-Mustadrak Al-Hakim, and then you also have the verse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَامْسَحُوا بِوُجُوهِكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ. That wipe your faces and wipe your hands. From here, the opinion of the madhab went to the second, like the new school, that you need to strike it 2 times. And once you strike it 2 times, you do it up to the hand. But Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah, in Sahih Muslim, when he's going over this hadith, he says this is the opinion of the madhab, because Imam al-Shafi'i says that if a hadith is authentic, then that is my madhab. And then he also goes on and he says this is what majority of the scholars are on, that it is one hitting of the land, and it is just the hands, not the arm, but just the hands. So the face and the hands, and that is it. So when we go and perform tayammum, if we want to be Shafi'i, we'll do the hands. We'll do the hands. But if we're like, you know what, we're going to go with Imam al-Nawawi, and when he says we should, then we'll hit it, and then khalas, just the face and then the hands. And we would be out of the state of janaba, and we'll also be out of the state of impurity to where now we could go and pray salah. Any questions? Yes.
There was water, but it was just.
It was cold, yeah. It's very cold. No, very cold to the point he feared for his life. So he tells the Prophet ﷺ, like, and then alhamdulillah, our water is not that cold. We just have to wait a little bit. Yeah, so he actually feared using that cold water was going to harm him. So he said, I performed that tayammum. If you have that fear, and again, you have to look at like everything, right? This is cold water and it's outside. Here it's cold water. We're inside the house, right? So and then most of our water will heat up very quickly, right? Like, any other questions on how?
In your example that you showed us how to camera and face go up.
Yes.
It says
واليدين.
so.
So you would go. So this is the old way. I mean the new school way. And the reason here واليدين مع المرفقين, like you start here. You start from the hand here.
Oh, so yeah,
So you go like this, and then you save the palm, the inside of the hand, for it to come later like this. But you start from the top of the hand up to the مرفقين. If we do that, alhamdulillah, we will say we are
for if the stem, I mean, if you need to do some this stem.
yes. It is done both ways, whether it is for wudu or whether it is for ghusl. And you need the same, like the conditions have to be met. And then, khalas, you just do hit, face, and then hands. Or hit, face, then hit, then do this.
And obviously, if the conditions are met, then it's water.
If his conditions are met, you just made your face dirty.
Yeah.
Congrats. That's what just happened. Bismillah.
If you are in a state of junub, you go for a whistle, and then you come across water later on, you have to go and whistle again.
So let's keep reading. So the question was, if you make ghusl and then you come across water,
You make tayammum with the intention.
you make tayammum for ghusl, and then you come around water. Let's keep reading, and he will get to that, inshallah. طيب, Bismillah.
سنن التيمم وسننه ثلاثة أشياء تسميته تقديم اليمنى على اليسرى والموالاة.
So the sunnah act of ghusl is of tayammum. It is you begin with the tasmiyah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and then to give preference to the right side before the left side. So you start with the right, then you go to the left, and then al-muwala is what? What does al-muwala mean? Bismillah. One after the other, consecutively. First you do a niyyah, then you do a tasmiyah, then you do the mash al-wajh, right side first, right? So you begin. We do hand like this.
What's the tartib in the
A tartib is from the fara'id, from going one here, next, like this. Here is, these have to come right after one another. The difference is this is a sunan, where, like, for example, what if you started with the right side? Start with the left side instead of the right side. Starting from the right is from the sunnah, so it wouldn't make it batil, like it wouldn't make your tayammum not count. But if you went, instead of hitting first, or you hit first and did your hands first, you've gone out of the tartib. Now you don't have tayammum. While the sunnah, it's a recommended thing that you should do. But the difference between a tartib and muwala, and I think for every act, from wudu, from al-masah, he has mentioned al-muwala. What it means is you take these three, and if you were to combine them with the four of an-niyya, you would say at-tartib and then al-muwala. So you do tartib, you do it in the order that they have come, and then you do them consecutively. So you're not taking breaks. There's no stopping. You just go from one to the next, to the next, to the next. Is that clear? طيب. Any other questions? So saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, we've talked about the virtues of it. Right will always be emphasized over left side in everything that we do. And then consecutively, Bismillah.
مبطلات التيمم والذي يبطل التيمم ثلاثة أشياء ما أبطل الوضوء ورؤية الماء في غير وقت الصلاة والردة.
Now, what are the things that destroy a person's tayammum? If you're in the state of tayammum, what takes it away? He says the first thing is anything that takes wudu away. Anything that destroys wudu destroys tayammum. And so, for example, if somebody passes out, khalas, this breaks wudu, also breaks tayammum. If somebody becomes intoxicated, this breaks wudu, this also breaks tayammum. And then all of the things that we mentioned before from breaking wudu. So that is the first one. The other one is seeing water في غير وقت الصلاة. So if you see water before the time of salah, your tayammum is done. And what here it means, like if you've made tayammum and you've prayed, you can pray as many sunnahs as you want after. But you finished the salah time. So now you're waiting for that next salah to come. If you see water there, that tayammum can no longer be used to pray the sunnah, cannot be used. It has destroyed your tayammum. So if you are, but it does not nullify what came before. It doesn't nullify the prayer that you prayed or the fact that you were in a state of purity. It does not nullify that. Yes.
So how long can one be in a state of tayammum? Is it until they see water, or is it does it follow the same ruling of wudu, where it's like you can have wudu for the whole entire time until like the 24 hours?
The next part will be about that. We'll get to that, inshallah. So just seeing water breaks at the time that is not the time of salah, breaks the salah, breaks tayammum. And then the last one that he puts is ridda. What is ridda? Huh? Leaving Islam. Leaving Islam takes away at tayammum. Now, why do they put this here? I wonder, did he put this in wudu? No, I think he placed it in wudu. And I think he also placed it in ghusl. Bismillah, let's go look. Oh, it's not here. Okay, so this is the first time. Okay, khalas. So the reason they put ridda here when you talk about at-tayammum, it is for one reason. We said earlier this is from the khasa'is of this ummah, from the specialties of this ummah. Once you leave the ummah, you no longer have access to it. It's not there. You've left Islam, khalas, tayammum is done. And I think it should have been there for wudu and also ghusl and so on. But yeah, leaving of Islam takes away any type of purity that you had and makes you enter into the state of not just the minor impurity, but now the nafs itself is najis. طيب. Any questions on what destroys التيمم? خلاص. Let's read the next one.
مسح على الجبيرة وصاحب الجبائر يمسح عليها ولا إعادة عليه كان وضعها على طهر.
طيب. Keep going.
ويتيمم لكل فريضة ويصلي بتيمم واحد ما شاء من النوافل.
Okay. الجبيرة is a splint. A splint or a cast. We'll use cast. I don't think splint is very rare. You use a cast on places you have to make wudu. For example, on the arm or on the legs or something on the face. These are places that a person needs to make wudu. So when the time of wudu comes, all he's going to do is do a mash over it. So if he has the cast here, he'll make regular wudu. Then when it comes to here, he'll just wipe over. He'll wipe over this. But every wiping, every type of wiping we do, it is always one time. So even if like wudu, we have to wash 3 times. Huh? If you wash this side 3, when it comes to the wiping, you only do it one time. Or if it's on this hand or wherever it might be on the leg or on the face, the wiping is once, washing is 3 times. So you are allowed to do tayammum there, and you are not going to be required to repeat it, or even like wash it or do anything, if you put like these casts on while you are in the state of purity. While you're in the state of purity. Now, if you are not in the state of purity, again, you would only do the masah. No salah that you did because of this needs to be repeated. No act of worship needs to be rectified because of this wiping. Now, how many times? And the reason why it's brought here in a tayammum, because this is a part of tayammum, the wiping. It is what makes tayammum tayammum. So therefore, he just adds here, if you have a splint, if you have a type of injury, and it doesn't have to be a cast. All right, it doesn't have to be a cast. It could be like maybe your injury was not big enough to get a cast, But let's say you really had like there's a big bandage, so it can be the cuts that you and I get. Okay, so it has to be like maybe there's a big cut, but there's only a bandage on there, and you cannot wash. Like water cannot get there, and in that instance, you would also wipe. Clear? Like,
So you said if so so there's no difference if you got that cast if you have wudu or in your pure state. Okay. Also, is it true when it comes to wiping the feet? Obviously, you do it once, but you do them both at the same time.
that is better to do them at the same time, or you go left to right. Let me stop from that. You go right to left. You wipe right and then you wipe left. Like, then he says, and this answers your question from earlier. He says, وَيَتَمَمَّمُ لِكُلِّ فَرِيضَةٍ or يَتَيَمَّمُ. For every fard salah, he has to make tayammum again. So every fard salah, you cannot make it in the morning for fajr and stay up until dhuhr and pray. You would have to make a different tayammum. But وَيُصَلِّي, he is able to pray بِتَيَمُّمِهِ وَاحِد, with that one tayammum that he made, مَا شَاءَ مِنَ النَّوَافِلِ, however much you want of sunnah prayer. Of sunnah prayer, you don't have to make it for every prayer. For the 5 prayers, every single salah, you are required to actually come and make a tayammum. Why is that? Anyone want to take a guess?
Like it makes it where you have to think about water again and again. So if you come across it, you have to.
Because one of the condition, it is to not have water and then to go look for water. And that cannot be met if I have tayammum now and I just say, oh, when dhuhr time comes, I'm going to pray with my tayammum because I'm in the state that allows me to pray. So there has to be that search. And once you're out of the time of salah, khalas, tayammum is for fara'id, you cannot use it again.
And we're saying when we're looking for water, obviously it has to be pure water. It can be.
No, yeah, it has to be water that you could use to make wudu with. Right? Their attempt is different. I think for everyone here, like it would be different for what I consider actively looking, like actually looking, and what you might consider looking. Right? I could say 4 hours we're gonna look for this water. Somebody could say, 2 hours is reasonable to look for the water. Someone could say 30 minutes. If I know I'm not going to find it, I'm not going to find water. No. None of the acts of worship that you did with tayammum have to be redone once they're done. Once you said salam alaikum to the salah, and then like somebody walks in and says, I am selling water. I'm selling water. You don't have to buy water, even if it's within the time. Once the act is done, khalas, it's checked out. I don't know.
So let's say I assume back in the day when they used to do care like traveling in the desert, they knew how much water they're gonna bring for drinking.
Yes.
And so they knew the intention of they're going to be doing tayammum as they're going to be on this 2-3 months journey.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to looking for water, obviously they're not going to they know the land. They're not going to scout for things, or if they don't know the land, they know they're traveling, and that they can't just keep going off course for 2-3 hours every salah to look for water. So how what's the principle around that? You just
so you send one person to go look. You send one person who's responsible for finding water, and you should have planned to have enough water for wudu and to have enough water for drinking. When you lose it, when you don't have it, that's when you're like, okay, we have to have a tayammum. If we look at how even tayammum was legislated, it happens in the 6th year after the hijrah. Aisha radiallahu anha, she loses a necklace. The Prophet ﷺ, they're returning from war. He decides we're going to all look for this thing. So they're looking for a necklace, and it's like a very cheap necklace, even for that time. And they're looking. Then some of the companions realize we don't have water. We're supposed to be in Medina by now. We're not in Medina. Fajr is going to come. What are we going to do? And it was at that moment that tayammum became legislated for them, and they performed it, even though they were going to reach Medina. But because they were going to reach it after the salah is over, they didn't want to miss it. The time came for them to perform tayammum, and they prayed. So the entire army performed a tayammum and prayed salah with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then once the animal that they were riding on got up, the necklace was under it. Right? So they look, it's right under the animal that is there. Someone went to Aisha radiallahu anha. He says, "This is not the first barakah your family has brought for us." Right? This ease of using a tayammum in place of wudu. From there, like, so when you leave, the intentions is I have enough water, I have enough things for drinking for my animals, but then something happens and you lose the water. Because how, especially in those times, how easy would it be for someone to lose water? And then because of that, there has to be this attempt that is made. I have to go look for some water. Again, we can look back and say this is going to take them 2-3 hours. But for people that are walking in the desert, that might be normal for them. So, like that. Tasneem, you had a question? Oh, no, خلاص. I thought you raised your hand. Here, no, any other questions? And tayammum. With this, we conclude the chapter of tayammum. We shouldn't make a plan to perform tayammum, right? But in case it happens, we, alhamdulillah, should know enough now that we are able to go and perform a tayammum. طيب. Let's do أنواع النجاسات. Actually, let's finish أنواع النجاسات and then we'll go, inshallah. بسم الله.
أنواع النجاسات فصل وكل مائع خرج من السبيلين نجس إلا المني.
طيب. أنواع النجاسات, types of impurities. What are the impurities? Here, he says everything that comes out from the two private parts is najis. Anything that comes from it. It is najis illa al-mani, except for sexual fluids. Everything else is najis. طيب.
وغسل جميع الأبوال والأرواث واجب إلا بول الصبي الذي لم يأكل الطعام فإنه يطهر برش الماء عليه.
طيب. Now, النجاسات, they have to be removed. They have to be removed. He is first going to talk about the najasat that are common for everyone. Urine and the other, they need to be removed. Removing them is wajib. And the way that you would do it would be with actual washing of it, of the area, of the places that they might have touched. That is how you purify it. Except for the bowl of sabi, for the urine of the child that has not, lam ya'kul al-ta'am, that has not ate, he did not eat food yet. And food here, like what it means is a child is given milk, generally, a sabi is given milk, or anything that mimics milk. Anything outside of that, once they eat it, their thing also requires washing. But in that state, that they're only drinking milk or formula, what ends up happening is فَإِنَّهُ يُطْهَرُ بِرَشِّ الْمَاءِ عَلَيْهِ. All you would have to do is sprinkle water on it. So if, for example, while you're changing a diaper of a 2-month-old, 3-month-old, and they pee on you, instead of actually washing, just taking water and sprinkling on it is enough to make this thing pure now. Questions here?
Is this applied to just for the
So as-sabi is what? Boys. This here in the Shafi'i madhab only applies to boys. So the boys, and then at-ta'am also they sometimes move it to meat. Like in the other madhab, instead of just non-milk, like for the Shafi'iyah, they move it to like meat. So he can eat like the baby food that they make out of avocado, like those the fruits and stuff that wouldn't make it him najis yet. That wouldn't make that require the washing or require the sprinkling of water. Now, if he does that, khalas, there's no more just sprinkling water on it. It has to be washing, the washing of it. Any questions?
Sorry, so I don't. This only applies to boys in general, like boys, babies.
No, boy, before they eat.
Oh, what about girls?
As soon from they're born,
They have to wash it.
you'd have to wash it. Any other questions? طيب. And the way that a person is going to wash it, not just like urine and I think, but any type of najasat, it needs to one like actual active washing. So if, for example, if my son now he eats meat, he decides to pee on me, it can't like it. There has to be what we consider washing for it to go from being impure to being pure. Being pure. طيب. Read the next part.
ولا يعفى عن شيء من النجاسات إلا اليسير من الدم والغيظ.
So every najasa is impure. Every najasa is impure, and you have to go wash it. Except sometimes there's like excusable amounts of pus or excusable amounts of blood that you wouldn't have to. Now I have to go wash it, or I'm in the state of impurity. Like, and a very small amount of it is excusable. How do you determine that small amount? For example, if I had a like a scab and I picked at it and there's like little blood that came in that, like for that I wouldn't, now I have to go wash this hand, that I have to go purify myself. It'd be, this is small enough to where it's excusable, to where it doesn't impact, like I'm not in the state of najasa. We should, like, we have an idea of what is small and what is a lot. If blood is just flowing, then it's like, okay, this is not one that could be excusable. Any questions? So small amount is not najis. Even like in the madhab, even big amounts of it does not like big amounts is not najis. But there has to be like some cleaning. That is what's intended here, right? But like there are some that believe that, for example, if a drop of blood hit this ground here, you and I can no longer pray on it, and we have to somehow remove it. It wouldn't. So no, this is najis does not break a person's wudu. The touching of it, right? The touching of any najis, coming in contact with najis, never breaks a person's wudu. It itself is impure and just needs to be cleaned off. So if I had wudu, for example, and somehow again my son, he eats meat now, he's 2 years old, he pees on me while I'm changing his diaper, and I had wudu, I still have wudu, but until I clean this, I cannot pray. Right? So that is how we look at an-najasa. Next part.
وما لا نفس له سائلة إذا وقع في الإناء ومات فيه فإنه لا ينجسه.
طيب. Here he says any animal that does not have blood, if it falls into an ina, into container, whether it's food, whether it's water, whatever the container has, it does not make it impure. Yes, there are some animals that don't have blood. The one that we know most commonly is like a jellyfish. Jellyfish has no blood. So if a jellyfish, if it were to fall into our ina, it wouldn't become impure. The other thing, like oysters, oysters don't have blood. The snail that goes in the water and also outside. What is that called? Like there's snails that are water, like there's like snails that are in water and also outside. They can swim in water and also be like survive outside. I forgot the name of it, but they're also like one of the animals that don't have blood. And these are things that people typically would eat. Some people like oysters and clams and stuff like that. Yes.
So we're just saying, I mean, in general, like if like a fish, for example, just falls into the water and it's not cut open.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's that water is still clean. It's only when it's cut open and there's actually
like blood from it. Yes.
From it. Okay.
And al-ina here, like if it falls into this water that you have, you don't know if this like what type of purity that it had, or if even a tiny bit of blood went into it, and then it's like, okay, khalas. If it doesn't have blood, it's not going to. Everything else, we have to be a little bit careful.
Can we just not say that any blood that goes into the water, like, will make it najis?
How about an animal that has like doesn't have blood? What happens?
That's what I'm saying. So it's like,
if there's
removing the confusion of like which animals would fall in the water.
Uh-huh.
You're saying if blood is in the water. Because as was mentioned, like
yeah.
if a fish goes in the water, it's fine until it starts bleeding. So isn't it just the blood when it enters the water?
You know, now that I'm thinking about the question, how is fish going to fall into your water? Into your container?
Let's say what about this? Let's say that you
So you're going fishing and like you have a bucket for water and a bucket where you actually put the fish.
Yeah.
And it jumps into the other one. Just as an example.
That animal's still alive.
Yeah, the animal's still alive.
But here the thing is, mata fihi, it dies inside of it. Right? So it's not just the animal just going in. It goes in and dies inside of it.
So it has to be alive before it enters?
Yes, it dies inside of the container. Right? And this death of it makes it a meta, and meta is najis, and now this is what it's doing. So now the water becomes that. Right? It becomes a type of najis. But if it doesn't have blood, then it won't fall into that category. Any other questions here? طيب. Next part.
والحيوان كله طاهر إلا الكلب والخنزير وما تولد منهما أو من أحدهما.
Actually, someone said, what if an insect dies in your container? Insects. So, do insects have blood, sir?
yeah.
All of them?
So
Okay, I know there's like two types of worms that don't have blood. I know that one. All right.
Like a fly or a mosquito.
So I think a mosquito. So let's make it very simple. Let's do this. Insects that don't have blood and they go and they die, do not make the water impure. If they fall in and they do have blood and they die, then now it is impure. Yes. Except for the fruit fly,
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if it falls into your drink, dip the whole thing inside and then take it out, because in one wing is the disease and in the other wing is the cure for it. And this is something that's actually scientifically proven. Alhamdulillah, even if it wasn't, we would still be we'll still do that. And that is fruit fly. So the house fly is the fruit fly, sir.
flies are like these little tiny flies.
Yeah, the house flies are the whole house, huh? Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't apply. It applies to the house fly.
Yeah. So if it falls in, one carries the disease, the other one carries the. But we're Americans. As soon as that happens, I don't want the whole drink, right? It's just I'm okay with this. Let it be gone. Let it gone.
Is there with water when we said that if there's some najis in it, then there's other things we look at before we mark it as impure or not?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same thing with like if a fly goes into like my pool, not pool, but let's say like a really big tub of water?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make the whole thing impure?
No.
So
this is in a container, like a small container we're talking about. Like what you would normally keep around the house, right? So like for example, you're drinking cup.
Okay, like a cup.
Yeah. Like something that's negligible.
Like an animal fall into
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. But again, fiqh is, if that happens, I'm ready. I know what I need to do. I have the understanding. طيب, next part.
والحيوان كله طاهر إلا الكلب والخنزير وما تولد منهما أو من أحدهما.
طيب, every single animal, it is pure. It is tahir, except for the dog and the khinzir, or what comes from one of them. What that means is, if a pig mates with, for example, a donkey, the animal that comes from it is it is not tahir. If a dog does it, for example, with a cat, whatever comes, that is also not tahir. But every animal outside of those animals, it is pure. Every single animal. Why is the pig najis? This is easier to answer, right? The Prophet said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, حرمت عليكم الميتة والدم ولحم الخنزير. So the khinzir is from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made haram on us. Now what happened to the dog in order for the dog to enter into this part of the khinzir? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that إذا ولغ الكلب في إناء أحدكم, that if a dog like licks one of your utensils, you have to wash it 7 times, and one of those times has to be بالتراب, with pure land. The fact that the Prophet ﷺ is telling us that the dog licking makes the thing impure tells you the animal itself is impure. So even though other madhabs don't apply, like, so if a pig was to lick your utensils, the Shafi'i madhab gives it the same ruling as the dog. It has to be washed 7 times. The other madhab, they restrict it to the dog. So the dog is not a pure animal. Ah, yes. Okay.
So it's like dogs only sweat.
Uh-huh. Is there? Uh-huh.
So it's like if we're like petting our dogs,
Yes.
does that figure out?
Petting the dog is not.
Completely avoiding them licking like our skin or our clothes.
So petting a dog does not, touching any najasa does not break wudu, right? So if you pet the dog, it does not break your wudu. But if the dog was to lick you, does that break your wudu?
And you just have to wash your hands.
No, you just change your clothes at your or whatever it might be. That
The
if you look
clothes
at
is
that,
impure, but you being in the state of wudu does not change, because what breaks wudu, very, like, there's the set things that break it. And even though these things, for example, if a dog was to lick me, I can't pray salah unless I clean the place that the animal licked. But that doesn't mean that if I take off this now, I have to make wudu. Right? So if you avoid the saliva, then the dog is like, petting it does not break a person's wudu. Yes.
So when it's so 7 times plus.
No. It's 7 times, and one has to be land.
So you would still apply that.
Yes. Regardless of what. Now the tricky question comes of, none of us wash our hands. None of us wash our clothes. You see, hands is crazy. That's how COVID spread. Huh? No. None of us wash our clothes with our hands to say 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and so on, right? What we do is we put it into the washer. Now, when you put it into the washer, we consider the entire thing one cycle. So, like, this is one cycle of washing. There are some that count the spinning, like this, every spin is one wash. So when it, like, at the end, especially when it drains the water and it's doing the spinning, or with the water is doing the spinning, for every spin it is one wash. So depending on how you take this, and then for the turab, um, there are some people that allow, like, laundry detergent to take the place, because why are we being told to wash it with dirt? It is like, dirt is pure and it's clean. Now the detergent is taking the place of this thing, right? So if I threw it in the washer and I said the entire cycle is one, I'd have to turn it on 7 times. Or if I said every spin is one, just throw it in there would suffice. Yes.
So like that was my question, where it's like when it says we have to wash something 7 times, it's like we now have the modern advancements of like chemical medicine, dishwashers and stuff like that. So it's like you have to wash your utensils 7 times with soap and water, or is it like, not to get too technical, but
I feel like utensils.
Dishwasher and
Yeah, I think utensils are much easier, even if we had to wash it 7 times. Right? Like, it would be just like wash one, like, because we normally, I use most of the dishwasher, but normally, like, we grew up washing with our hands, right? So I just do water 6 times, or the fourth time I'm going to put dust. I'm going to use soap. Then afterwards, just continue the washing. Now I'm done. But if you do it in I've never actually looked into putting utensils into into the dishwasher. as taking the place of washing it 7 times. The reason you do it for washer because it's like there's a lot of spinning and there's a lot of all these things. More with the dishwasher is the shooting of the water and using air and what it is to wash it. So I don't know. I'll look into that. But utensils is a lot just easier to wash with the hands. Ah, yeah.
Yes.
Uh, Bismillah.
So, for example, with the hands, if I saliva the dog comes on my hand, do I still use dirt or is like soap sufficient in that case?
Okay, what do we think? Uh-huh.
I mean, what's stood out? Just like hitting the couch.
Okay, actually, let's look at what he says here. I want us to think about this question. He puts here, after he says, like a little bit down, he says, وَيَغْسِلُ الْإِنَاءُ, that you wash the utensils. Do we restrict this, as some scholars have done, to only utensils? Meaning pots, pans, forks, spoons, plates, cups. Do you only restrict it to that because that is like the containers, or would you take it to the like anything?
It's like
Anything touches it. Not the table, but like for example, like my clothing, my body, and so on. We're not gonna take it as far as the hands. The hands will say just one wash is going to be enough. One wash is just going to be enough to actually purify. Obviously, we'll use soap and say, "Oh, this is all that is required." But when it comes to the clothing, when it comes to pots and pans and cups and those things, containers, then we'll say, "Khalas, this is going to be the 7 times." Is that clear? طيب, Umar.
uh, so making an animal pure or impure doesn't always necessarily mean we can eat it or not, right? So what I mean by that is, on one side, we can't eat animals that, for example, eat other animals, even though they're pure,
Yes.
right? But at the same time, if a dog, does a dog only, we can't eat a dog because of the same criteria. Okay. So just because an animal is pure doesn't always mean that we can eat it.
So the way we should look at it, when an animal being pure, is not talking in the sense of eating, but it's talking like, for example, if a cat was to come and lay on you, do you have najis on you or do you not have najis? Or let's say, for example, somehow you went and you petted a tiger. Now, is that animal? Are you petting something that is najis or something that is pure? And with this was like every animal except these two are animals that are pure. That doesn't mean because they're pure, now you could go and say, I can eat all these animals. Even though there are some madhabs that allow the eating of every animal except what has been made halal. Right? So like bear, lion, and stuff like that. Someone just recently sent me a fatwa because they wanted to go hunt a bear, and you can't hunt animals that you can't eat. Right? That is like this is a waste now. But there are some that allow the eating of bear. Now you can say I can go hunt it, eat it. That's crazy. But yeah, so like there are some madhabs that allow that. For us, an animal being pure does not mean it is halal for us to eat. Like, any other questions?
I wanted to go back to. I don't think I understand the dog. You said he licks you. You're saying that you can just wash it one time and you're okay.
Mm-hmm. But the clothing, shoes, things like that.
So as long as it's like the human body, you have to wash it once. But otherwise, everything else is 7 times.
Yep. طيب بسم الله.
والميتة كلها نجسة إلا السمك والجراد والأدمي.
Every dead animal or every mayta, it is najis, except for 3. A samak, fish. Any fish, if it dies, it's still pure. It's not considered najis. Wal jarad, which is the locust. Right? Locust being dead does not make it najis. And this is Abdullah ibn Umar. He says the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allah has allowed us to eat from 2 maytas, 2 dead things. السمك والجراد, fish, and also al-jarad. Um, I know that some of you have seen the videos of what happens annually to Mecca and Medina, of the swarm of locusts that come to it. Has always been happening. So they would come, they would land, they would die. You could take that and just eat it. You could take it and eat it.
Free protein.
Free protein, huh? MashaAllah. طيب. And then the last one, والآدمي, the dead body of Bani Adam is not najis. The dead body is not najis. So we don't perform ghusl because they are najis. Right? We perform ghusl to purify them before they go into it. But our dead bodies are not considered from najis. Any questions on these three? طيب, let's finish the next one.
ويغسل الإناء من وضوء الكلب والخنزير 7 مرات إحداهن بالتراب ويغسل من سائر النجاسات مرة تأتي عليه والثلاثة أفضل.
هناك. طيب. He says washing al-ina, your utensils, from the licking of the kalb or the khinzir, you do it 7 times, one of them with turab, and then for every najasat, for every other type of najis, you wash it 1 time. What is required is to wash it 1 time, but it is better for you to do it 3 times. It is better for you to do it 3 times. So any type of najasat gets on you, washing it 1 time suffices. Your clothing, your shoes, whatever it is, or the land, now it is pure. But it is better for you to come and do it 3 times. Just like it is enough for us to wash our hands, our faces, our arms, and our legs in wudu 3 times. I mean, we could do 1 time. Doing 3 times is much better. طيب, any questions here? And then with the dog, he says, 7 مرات إحداهن بالتراب. One of them has to be with التراب. طيب, next part.
وإذا تخللت الخمرة بنفسها طهرت وإن خللت بشيء طرح فيها لم تطهر.
يعني عندك بشيء؟
إن خللت بطرح شيء فيها لم تطهر.
طيب. So he says vinegar. Now he's talking about vinegar. If vinegar turns into vinegar by itself, it is halal. But if it turns into vinegar, actually, astaghfirullah, take a step back. If you have wine, because vinegar is not only made from wine. If you have wine and it turns into vinegar by itself, you're allowed to use that. But if you have wine or khamr and you add, for example, what they do to make it faster, they would add vinegar. So if you add vinegar to wine, it speeds up the process of it fermenting, extra fermentation to turn into vinegar. Or they would add salt, or they would add other things that would speed up the process. It is haram for you to use it. It is haram for you to use it. There are many ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he prevents the turning of wine into vinegar by the people. Somebody came to him and said, these orphans inherited some wine. What should we do? Can we turn it into vinegar? The Prophet ﷺ said, pour all of it out. But if it was to just turn by itself, then it would become halal. Most of the vinegar that you and I use these days, if for example you use like distilled white vinegar, that is not made from alcohol. That is usually made from corn. And it does go through the process of where it turns into khamr and then to vinegar after. Because vinegar, like what it really means is it means sour khamr, right? Like sour wine is what vinegar is, right? Like from the French word of where it comes from, it means like sour wine. So if you let it go naturally by itself, then we are allowed to use it. And we have the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, how amazing a food vinegar is. طيب.
So things like they say rice wine vinegar,
Mhm.
that then would not be halal or not permissible because it's very clearly taken from a wine vinegar.
Using rice. Yeah, it wouldn't. But if you just had rice vinegar, that is fine. All right. So, what's the difference?
What differentiates, because people make wine out of basically any plant.
Any fruit, right? Yes.
What differentiates, like?
So here, so vinegar by itself, the ruling that we give to it is halal. Vinegar by itself, this is halal. Now you come to the question of what did you use to make this vinegar? Did you first make wine and left it and forgot that you had it, and then it turned into vinegar? In that case, this is now something that is halal for you to use, even though it began as a haram substance. It began from like it was wine that turned into vinegar. But now, if you have wine and you take this and turn it into vinegar by adding things that would speed up the process, you are engaging with this haram substance to get to this place, which is the outcome of that haram action of yours is what came from it is also haram. So what came from you actively turning wine into vinegar is haram. But if you skip the process of wine, of making it into alcohol, like let's say we want to make vinegar at home today. One of the things that we could do is we could take water, take the scrapes of like the coverings of the fruit, put it into a mason jar, fill it up with water, tie the lid. No oxygen is getting inside. Tie the lid and put it away. We come back some time later. Come back some time later. It could be months, it could be a few years. We come back. That now has turned into vinegar, and we would be able to take it and use it. We did not intend in any of this process to make wine, to stop at the time where it's fermented, it is a fermented alcoholic drink. That is none of our intentions. So if you make it like that with regular things that people use to make wine, and there's no intentions of making wine, this is just vinegar that's halal for you to use. Right? But now, if let's say, may Allah protect us from this. If somebody gives you wine, right, uh, Christmas time comes, these people do, they give it to you at your work, wherever it is, they give you these things. And you tell yourself, Astaghfirullah al-Azim, I can't even touch this, but they dropped it on my door. I'm going to put it in the garage and go dispose of it later. You become busy. And like 2-3 years passes, and now you start to smell something. You find it that wine that you had, which I mean, like today's wine is very rare for it to actually turn into vinegar because they make sure like it has long shelf life, right? So then when you come in, it turned into vinegar. Then you're like, okay, I didn't do anything. This turned by itself. I'm going to be able to use this vinegar now. Do you see the difference between the two?
The intention.
And the action, right? If you
What if you were to intention? Let's say you got the wine, and you're like, oh, I can use this in vinegar if I leave it in the garage for 2 years. You intentionally left it without adding anything to it.
you are sitting by buying that wine.
Let's say you got it as a gift, but same scenario.
By the way,
instead of forgetting it,
okay, let's
because the condition here is
no,
you
let's
add something to it.
yes,
So you didn't add anything. You just left it.
you just left it. If you just left, then you'd be like, "Khalas, now this is vinegar."
But with the intention that you want to turn it into vinegar.
No, if if the intention starts before you get it, no, you can't use it. So it has to be like if you are given today's wine, very rare to turn into vinegar, right? Today's wine, they're not turning into vinegar because they add their things to make sure that you could drink it later, right? But before, people didn't have these they didn't have the preservatives that they would add to give it a longer shelf life. For example, today when you go home, how many of you have timel at home? Tamar, dates. Have dates. Cut a date open, put it in water. 3 days from now, it becomes haram for you to drink it. Right? You make nabid. If you wait longer, that is going to turn into date wine. Right? But for us, that 3rd day, khalas, no more drinking this. It's kombucha.
Not even just kombucha, like kombucha or old kombucha. If you leave it,
Mhm.
it will become
Yeah.
like vanilla extract.
Yeah.
So like mirin. or like stuff like that that has like they put has alcohol for allergy reasons, but the content of it is so little that
Omar, can we use vanilla extract?
Yeah.
We could use it? Why?
Because there's no amount that you could take that will like
Make you intoxicate you.
but
Even though 39% of all vanilla extract, like when you look at the bottle, there at least 39% of it is alcohol. Right? Like the number, it's not a small amount here. The number in vanilla extract is very big.
Should we talk about nutmeg and poppy?
Nutmeg and poppy seeds too. Oh yeah, you can use those.
You can't, right?
Poppy seeds for sure you can't use it. Right? This is an intoxicant. It comes from the same thing that they used to make opioids. So it's no poppy seed. What's it called? Muffins from now on. Huh? We're done with poppy seed flavored muffins. But I think we have. Okay, خلاص, we're going to stop here. Actually, went over. One more question. No, we'll have time for questions. We'll just stop.
so like if you get like gifted a bottle of wine, for example, it's like can you